Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Islamic conscience, the conscience of the vast majority of Muslims, stands for justice, truth, and common human values. By painting all Muslims with the same brush, we undermine their humanity and defame over a 1.9 billion people, 2 in 5 of those who inhabit our planet, their societies, their histories, as a caricature of the darker side of the West. Muslims are real people with real histories. For over 800 years, their civilization led the world in science and learning, in thought and innovation, in literature and in travel, in politics and international relations. Today, Muslims are trying to rediscover their historic identity, liberate themselves from the crushing burdens of neocolonialism and an oppressive and unjust world order, and shape a responsible and viable future. But due to Western propaganda, Islam and terrorism have become synonymous. After the events of 2001, this might seem natural, yet nothing could be further from the truth. People are increasingly aware of who was truly behind that tragic event and how they shifted the blame onto a specific religion. They sacrificed their own people and skyscrapers just to defame Islam and Muslims and to justify war against them. Islam cannot be blamed for the action of the terrorists who attacked the World Trade Center and the Pentagon in Washington, any more than Christianity can be blamed for the gas chambers and Catholicism for the activities of Irish terrorists. Terrorists follow their own twisted logic and exist outside normality and reason. They are senseless individuals whose evil acts shock and upset all people of conscience. Islam does not promote or support any type of terrorism act or killing of innocents at all. Understood? Now, the root of terrorism in the current context could be traced to the Middle East, where the West's penchant for compensating the Jews for Europe's anti Semitism and Nazi Germany's genocide of the Jews led to creation of Zionist state of Israel. And the British conceived the illegitimate baby and it was nursed and nurtured by the United States of America, the so-called greatest champion of democracy and civil liberties. Now everyone in the world is much more aware of how the so-called most powerful country supplies arms and ammunition and how these weapons are then used against innocent infants and children. They label Muslims as terrorists, but they themselves mercilessly kill millions, including innocent children. They call Muslim terrorists, yet they have killed 6,20,000 people in Syria, 1,03,000 in Palestine, and 46,000 in the past 8 months alone. 1,80,000 in Afghanistan, 3,82,000 in Yemen. Over a million lives lost, and they still claim that the followers of a specific religion are the only terrorists. The world is not blind or ignorant. People see the truth. But listen, O the cruel and evil leaders, those in power, do whatever you want, as you are already committing countless injustices. But remember, on the day of judgment, every drop of blood will be accounted for, inshallah. You might escape justice here, but you cannot escape Allah's judgment. They kill thousands of innocents and then claim we are just peacemakers. But don't worry, we already know your true nature, as our Rabb has already told us about you and your actions in Quran, Surah Baqarah, verse 11 and 12. When they are told, do not spread corruption in the land, they reply, we are only peacemakers. Indeed, it is they who are the corrupters, but they fail to perceive it. So the world knows your double standards and masked faces, so there is no need to hide it anymore. And as said by Allama Iqbal rahmatullah alayh, है खाक फ़लस्ती पे यहूदी का अगर हक, if the Jew has a right over the soil of Palestine, हस्पानिया पर हक नहीं क्यों अहले अरब का, why don't the Arabs have a right over Spain? मकसद है मुलूकियत इंग्लिस का कुछ और, the aim of British imperialism is something else. किस्सा नहीं नारंज का या शहद और रुतब का, this is not a matter of oranges or honey and dates. Alongside corrupting the morals of the Syrians, both governments secretly incited the Jews of Palestine to rebel against the Arabs, using the pretext that since the Jews once ruled over Palestine, it is their ancestral and national homeland, and therefore they should be its rulers. Iqbal argues that if this reasoning of the followers of Iblis is valid, then Spain should be rightfully belong to the Arabs, as their ancestors also ruled that country for 800 years. If the Jews have any right to the land of Palestine, then why do the Arabs not have the same right to Spain? After the British took over the Palestine, they took measure to settle the Jews there and strengthen them under the patronage so that they would remain a constant and significant threat to the Arabs. This situation is clearly evident to us today in the 21st century in the form of the State of Israel. The deceitful and malicious claim of the British was that the Jews were originally inhabitants of Palestine. The question that arises is, if the Jews can be entitled to Palestine after 2000 years, then why are the Arabs not entitled to Spain, from where they were expelled only 5 centuries ago after ruling it for 800 years? And for your information, in the 1930s, the term Jewish Palestine was commonly used among Jewish communities. You can listen to a speech given by a Jew at a 1930s Jewish dinner party where he told Great Britain that Arab Palestine was useless to them and urged them to help establish Jewish Palestine, which would be beneficial in every aspect to Great Britain. Even then, they did not use the word Israel, but rather Jewish Palestine. Remember, you can kill thousands of people, burn thousands of books, and erase or change historical texts, but you cannot change or erase history. Tom Segev, an Israeli journalist and historian, has documented in his book Jews and Arabs under the British Mandate that how force and fraud were systematically employed by British rulers of Palestine from 1919 to 1948 to establish Jewish rule in complicity with Zionist leaders. The author's research led him to an interesting encounter. Segev records, the Zionist organization and the British government continue to bribe influential Arabs. President Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, told Chaim Weizmann, the Zionist leader, President of Zionist organization and the first President of the States of Israel, that in his opinion the Arabs could be bought. In the minutes of their conversation, the Arab word bakshish appears. The Jewish agency's biggest client seems to have been Prince Abdullah of Transjordan. So it is all clear. But still they target a specific religion just for their own benefit. Nazi German dictator Hitler, who considered himself a devout Christian acting on what he believed was God's plan, carried out the genocide that resulted in the deaths of many Jews. It was undeniably a period of intense Christian prejudice against Jews. Yet, does anyone describe Hitler as a Christian terrorist? Hardly ever. Stalin, Mussolini, and Mao killed millions, yet they are not labeled as terrorists. One could ask why. The Serbs carried out the genocide of Bosnian Muslims in the final decade of the 20th century, yet they have been spared the stigma of being labeled Christian Orthodox terrorists. Israel commits unimaginable atrocities against unarmed Palestinians. They have seized land three times its own territory and has built an apartheid wall to separate Palestinians and seize their water resources. Yet it is hailed as the only democracy in the Middle East otherwise ruled by dictators. We are still watching to hear the term Jewish terrorists. What a travesty of even handedness, isn't it? Then comes Martin Luther, founded his own Protestant faith in response to the despotic stranglehold of the Pope over the Catholic Church. Following this, the Luther's followers were brutally victimized, their houses burned, and women raped by Catholics. Has anyone ever accused Catholics of practicing terrorism? No one. Then why they do injustice with Islam and Muslim? While Islam don't even support or encourage act of terrorism at all. I will tell you why. Because the West and particularly the United States of America has been on the lookout for new enemies ever since the Cold War ended with the disintegration of the Soviet Union. William, an American author and a columnist with the New Yorker and a regular contributor for pages for the International Herald Tribune, he wrote that there are a good many people who think that the war between communism and the West is about to be replaced by a war between the West and Muslim. To some Americans, searching for a new enemy against whom to test our mettle and power, after the death of communism, Islam is the preferred antagonist. Understood? But to declare Islam an enemy of the United States is to declare a second Cold War that is unlikely to end in the same resounding victory as the first. Fear of the green, green being the color of Islam, fear of the green may well replace that of red menace of world communism. So it is all clear. It is just double standards of West. And we are experiencing similar things in today's times and conditions as we are looking all around us. And why does the West support Israel, the base of terrorism on earth, unconditionally? The first reason is to fight against Islam together, but ultimately Islam always prevails. Secondly, when Israel captures Gaza, it will boost the US economy through the Ben Gurion Canal project. Understood? Generating approximately $6 billion annually. And this canal offers Western governments a superior alternative to the Suez Canal, solidifying their control over a crucial shipping route. So, in order to build it, they must bombard Gaza, kill thousands of Palestinians, as they already did, and capture it. Overall, the West supports Israel because it benefits them in every way, and in return, Israel gets to accomplish its mission. Hope you understood the point clearly. But behind the turmoil and contradictions which are pulling it in so many different directions, the Muslim world is reconstructing itself as a dynamic, progressive civilization of the future, away from the clamor and slogans of a highly visible minority of extremists. It is bubbling with ideas, debates, and discussions on the contemporary and future significance of the message of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Many of these new ideas, theories, institutions, and outlooks will not only transform Islam and Muslim societies from within, but will also make a genuine and original contribution to the evolution of a pluralistic world. Understood? I hope this somehow has increased your knowledge and clear up any type of misunderstandings and misconceptions. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.